Hello, everybody, and happy Monday, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. Paul Dottino, John Schmeelk, and you. Give us a call on the phones at 201-939-4513. We will try to get to as many calls as possible today. We're going to have a little bit of a truncated show. We have a good reason, though. The buses pull out for Detroit at around 2:40, and we got to make sure we have time to get on the bus. So we'll probably be done around 2:20 today, give or take, and we're going to try to get to your calls very quickly and get in as many as we possibly can before we get on the bus.
Time out. You can power walk with me all the way down to Newark Airport if you like.
Like I said, we're going to end the show at 2:20, and we're going to get on that bus, at least I am, and maybe I can figure out a way to leave Paul behind, which might be beneficial to everybody.
Indeed.
So get on the lines, give us a call again, 201-939-4513. We'll try to get to your calls quickly here as we get ready to head to Detroit for the scrimmages, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, Paul, we actually had some news today, which was nice to see on a Monday morning. 2 Giants getting taken off the PUP, physically unable to perform list, known as the PUP list. A'Shawn Robinson will be back on the practice field. My guess is that in Detroit, he's probably just going to do a lot of individual stuff.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're going to rush him into competition against another team right away.
Concur.
And Marcus McKeithen, the offensive lineman, guard tackle, hybrid, he's kind of been a guy they've been training to back up all those positions. He will also be back on the practice field. But again, I'd be surprised if we saw him in any of those really competitive one-on-one or team periods because he's just getting off that injured list. But it's good to have those two guys back. And
it was.
A'Shawn Robinson, I mean,
he's a big man, John.
I would fall down, shocked, surprised if he's on the final 53. He's the guy they paid a decent amount of money to, so he's going to be there, assuming nothing goes wrong. And then Marcus McKeithen is a guy that'll give Shane Lemieux and Jack Anderson and those other guys some competition. And, well, I consider Bredesen on already. Bredeson's on the team. To be probably that fourth interior offensive lineman that can be on that roster to start the year.
Yeah, you know, Robinson is a very interesting case because we've all talked about how you want to reduce the snaps for Williams and Lawrence to improve their efficiency level. And when you've got a guy like Nacho who has had some good practices, John.
Yeah, he's actually made some plays.
You know, he had gotten in that car accident, had a minor concussion, and then had to come back late before they were able to get him on the field. And he's looked pretty good.
He's had some pass rushes, had a couple stops in the run game in 11-11.
And I'll be honest, I was a little surprised at the pass rush capabilities. He showed me a little more than I thought he was going to show.
I agree.
So between him and A'Shawn Robinson, you're in a position where you should be able to get those two starters a much-needed rest because, quite frankly, folks, maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, John, I thought they were gassed come the playoffs in Philadelphia. Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, quite frankly, in that playoff game did not have much left in their tanks.
Well, I think part of
they had been beaten up.
Part of it might also be the offensive line they were facing in that particular game,
well,
too.
No question. But when you're facing that good of a line, that level of competition, and you're starting to run low on the gas gauge, it just enhances what happened in that game. And I just think that was one of the reasons in my mind that Joe Shane made it a point to go out and get 2 veteran defensive tackles
100%.
who could add to the rotation so that those guys would not suffer that again if they made the playoffs this year.
I wonder in week 1 if it'll be Leonard, Dexter, and A'Shawn or Leonard, Dexter, and Nacho.
Well, let's see how many reps Robinson gets over the next few weeks first.
And, of course, they might also come out of nickel to start, and then it'll be Dexter, Leo, Ojulari, and Thibodeau. So.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. Look, none of us really know what Dallas is going to bring to the table in week 1. Pollard coming off the injury. We still don't know if Ezekiel Elliott's going to return to Dallas, which is possible. So until we figure that out.
And they lost, Ronald Jones to a suspension, right? He was like their veteran after Pollard.
So I don't know. I mean, is Dallas going to come out winging the football like crazy right away, or are they still going to try to do something with the run game? That's going to be a guessing game, I think, right up until kickoff.
Yeah, and, there was some news earlier in the offseason where Mike McCarthy said, I want to run the ball more, but that's kind of, you look at other quotes down there more recently, that's kind of maybe not as much the case as people thought. It was kind of taken out of context a little bit. So you're right. We don't know how Dallas is going to come out in that game. We don't. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, good to get Nacho back out. Good to get A'Shawn Robinson back out there with Nacho, with Dexter, with Leo. Then on the offensive line, Marcus McKeithen's a guy they drafted last year in the 5th round, right, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Josh Azuda's teammate at UNC. He played primarily left guard there. Big guy, hulking, massive. I talked to him in the offseason on the Giants Huddle. Go check out the offensive line episode. He talked about how he's been training at a bunch of different spots. So he's someone that really is going to need these next few weeks of work after suffering that ACL, I believe. Wasn't it like in the first week of camp last year? So he's barely had any NFL practice time. I don't think he's had one padded NFL practice in his career. I think he got hurt before the first padded practice last year. So he's going to need this work in the preseason and in practices.
You may have noticed him more than I have, but during the first, we just had practice number 10 today of training camp.
Yeah, it wasn't much of one, but it was a practice.
Yeah, it was only 1 hour inside, and there was one really long 7-on-7 drill. Otherwise, there was not much.
Well, there wasn't a ton going on.
No. But my point is, I've seen Robinson move around a lot more with the trainers than I have McKeithen. Between the two guys, it seemed like Robinson was doing a lot more with the trainers.
Well, McKeithen told me he thought he was going to be ready at the start of camp when I talked to him in June. So I think he'll be fine.
I mean, I hope so for him.
I mean, he wouldn't be ready. They wouldn't take him.
I know.
So.
I truly don't know what to expect from him. I really don't.
Well, how can you?
You know, I think I have a grip on Robinson from looking at his tape with the Rams.
Sure.
There's little doubt. I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, we'll see him opening day. He'll get some reps in that rotation against the Cowboys, and I think the Giants will be better off for it. I mean, thank goodness he's over his leg issue so that he can give them reps right away. I mean, I said to you earlier today, you know, the way he was coming around with the trainers and wasn't really doing much, although more than McKeithen, I wasn't sure when he was going to come off PUP, but he's off.
By the way, Jack Anderson returned for the practice, so Shane Lemieux is getting a lot of backup center reps with Anderson out, so he'll get a chance.
That's good for him.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Trying to be versatile. Got that last interior offensive line spot on the 53. So it's a good battle for that. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to the aforementioned Giants Huddle podcast. Today it's not up yet, but I talked to Jeff Fiegels, friend of the program. That's going up in the Giants Huddle podcast today. We did play Did You Play with Jeff Fiegels? And
oh, no.
I enjoyed the result. I'll leave it at that. But go check it out on the Giants Huddle podcast.
You could have cut him a little slack.
Oh, no. I took like 25 minutes preparing that thing. I murdered him. So make sure you go check it out, the Giants Huddle podcast. And I let him know about it, too. It'll be up later on today. By the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be up there and posted. So make sure you check it out on the Giants Huddle podcast, the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, giants.com/podcast. I'll have a couple huddles coming from Detroit. I'm trying to get Robert Mays from The Athletic. He hosts their podcast, The Athletic Football Show. Trying to get him tomorrow after practice, talk about the live practice, go around the league a little bit, and then we'll have our reaction podcast on Friday after the game as well. Not sure who's doing that yet. I'll have to figure that out in Detroit. So make sure you go check it out again. Giants app, giants.com/podcast, or go to your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Giants Huddle or Big Blue Kickoff Live. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review for either podcast. It certainly helps us out. All right, Paul, Detroit. I thought we might get something out of Brian Dable today about his plans for the scrimmage in the game.
Good luck.
We did not. So, needless to say, we now sit here, and I'm assuming that these guys are going to go pretty hard in the 2 days of scrimmaging, and we're not going to see a lot in the game. But Brian Dable did not spill his beans on that, but that's generally how these teams handle it. So, these 2 days of practices will be big, padded, to Dable's point and a lot of the players' points made today and on Friday and Saturday. It's good because, A, you don't know the tells and tendencies of the players you're going up against, but more importantly, and I think especially for the defense, you know, you see these offensive plays and concepts over and over again in practice, and you get used to them and you can anticipate what's coming. Well, that's not going to be the case when you're going against Detroit. So I'm looking forward to see both sides of the ball being surprised by a bit of a different concepts on both offense and defense to see how they handle it.
Now, Dable and Dan Campbell, the former Giants tight end, who is the head coach of the Lions, they've known each other a lot of years, and that's one of the reasons this thing is taking place. And the staffs have communicated and exchanged notes about what they want to get out of this. So it's quite possible, John.
And by the way, as of Saturday, that was happening at the coordinator level.
Yes.
And the coaches' assistants were doing that as well. But the head coaches, I don't believe, had talked since the spring, based on what Brian Dable told us on Saturday.
Right. We don't know if they've talked today
yet. We don't, or Sunday for that matter.
Now, I think the key, the reason that I bring that up is because each team clearly has things that they want to get out of it. And if it means maybe there's one session where we're going to do what the Lions really want, and maybe then there's another session where we're going to do what the Giants really want, the point is the full practice session from start to finish, there may be, because of the give and take, there may be certain parts of that practice session that will really be gauged towards what the other team is looking for. That's why it's a dual practice. It's a cooperative effort. So there may, in fact, be a drill or a session that we'll watch and say, well, from the Giants' perspective, there's probably not a lot to gain here, but that's probably because that's something the Lions wanted, and then vice versa. So, folks, when you hear about our practice reports when we're out there on Tuesday and Wednesday for those sessions, please understand, we're just going to be telling you what we've seen and what we think some of the stuff means, but without having the, quote, game plan of what these coaches have planned, it's going to be a little difficult.
And what I like to do is you look at the roster you're going up against, and you try to ID personnel that you're interested in seeing in the one-on-one drills, right? So I went through it a little bit today. I'll go through it now on the air. Guys that I'm interested to see, Paul, one unit-wise, I want to see how the Giants' defensive line does against one of the best offensive line groups in football. The Lions' offensive line is terrific. I want to see how the Giants, look, I know Dexter and Leo were great, but how do the Giants' edge rushers do, We want to see progress from Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari. How do they do against the Lions' offensive line? How do they do against the run when they run it in 11-on-11? So that's kind of the first thing I'm going to keep an eye on, how the Giants' pass rush does against a very good Detroit offensive front.
Yeah, in particular, the Lions were very good in pass protection last year for Jared Goff. And the thing about Goff, he's smart. He does know how to call a game. He knows how to deal with the different types of blitz packages. And I'm sure that Daboll's going to take the handcuffs off Wink and say, look, just go ahead. And I'm sure Campbell probably wants that.
Well, I think that's the question. What does Detroit want Wink to do, too?
I suspect they will. It only helps them to see the kind of stuff that Wink is going to throw at them. I would think that's the case. Now, on the other side of the ball, just to be fair to talk about the trenches, I don't feel the same way about Detroit's pressure package compared to what the Giants' O-line is.
Well, as an individual, I do want to see Aiden Hutchinson, which will be fun.
As an individual, yes.
Correct.
Depending upon where they line him up and who's going to go up against him, yes. But in general, I don't look at the Lions' front seven as the kind of front seven that's truly going to test or extend the Giants' front in any way.
No. We'll see an old friend, Romeo Quar, out there.
Yeah, I know. Romeo was always a good dude when he was here. He was just in a bad scheme. It didn't fit for him. And obviously, he's done some nice things for the Lions.
A couple other notes. Jamison Williams really has not been practicing for them, so I don't think we're going to see him out there, unfortunately. See his speed next to Jalen Hyatt's. Obviously, they're not going against each other, but two very fast receivers.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, is the one guy you want to watch the Giant cornerbacks go up against. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really good receiver, really a technician out there.
He burned the Giants last year.
Absolutely.
Remember that regular season game?
Well, he's a really good player. He burnt a lot of people. It wasn't just the Giants. We'll get to see Jahmyr Gibbs, the very multifaceted running back. He should be fun to see. David Montgomery's out there, too. He's someone we've seen a lot of. And then I'm excited to see Sam Laporta on offense. I was a huge fan of his in the draft process. I thought he was the second best tight end in the draft after Dalton Kincaid. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he moves around the football field and how the Giants deal with, how the Giants linebackers cover both Gibbs and Laporta and safeties in the middle of the field. I think that'll be interesting to watch.
One thing to mention to the fans out there, I did the account last night just as I was preparing for the game. There are 33 new faces here at Giants camp. Of the 90 men on the Giants roster as we stand here today, 33 are first-year Giants. That's a third of the roster, John. A third. And I'm not sure that we all thought that there would be that much turnover. Now, we'll see how many of those 33 make it. We don't know that. But one of the things that I'd like to see, and it's not about player on player, unit on unit, I'd like to see how crisp these guys are able to execute the alignment and the assignments. Execution can always, you never know what you're going to get. But alignment and assignment, we've seen Daboll twice this week get very angry at pre-snap penalties.
Yeah, the NFL officials have been on the field for the last week or so, and there's been too many pre-snap procedural things. And Brian Daboll has not been happy.
No.
But, people, it's funny. People, and maybe they're getting the idea now because more people are writing about it, but get the idea that Brian Daboll is this, fun, jovial guy, and he is if you run into the hall. But guess what? If something on the field is happening that he doesn't like,
You will know.
he lets you know about it.
Yeah, there was a play yesterday. The Giants were on field 3 yesterday, where they were running inside. They might have been about the 20, and they went to run an 11-on-11 drill, and one of the defenders didn't make it out there. And I'm not going to ID him. I don't want to embarrass the guy, but he wasn't out there. There was only 10 men on the field, and they had to call timeout and get that guy in the field, and Dable turned as red as a tomato.
Yeah, and then the offense had a delay game penalty later in practice.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they got the ball to the 5-yard line in the drill, and they had to back it up to the 10, and obviously the coach was not happy about that.
So I'm going to put down as one of my things is I'd like to see clean operation.
That's a good one.
So.
It is. And again, the lines are very scheme-based on offense. They don't have a ton of, like I mentioned, Jameson Williams not in there. So that's their most fastest offensive player that we're not going to see. But I'm curious to see how they handle the scheme. So it'll be fun to watch some of these matchups and see how the Giants handle it. Again, this is one of those classic barometer deals, right? I always go back to the 2015 practices against the Bengals when we thought the Giants were going to be pretty good. Then they show up, they play Cincinnati, and you're like, oh boy.
How about the one against the Cleveland?
This is going to be a long year.
That one didn't go well either. And the one against New England did not go well. I mean, the only dual practice that I can remember during training camp that went well for the Giants.
The last Lions one was okay.
I was not at that one. I went to the game. I came out late.
Yeah, was that the COVID year? Is that why? No, that
was before COVID. That was before
COVID.
It was before COVID, and I think that was during Pat Shermer's time here.
The Lions ones were okay, but the other ones were a little
I went out the day before the game, missed the 2 practices, and I was under the impression that they weren't that impressive.
Yeah, but it wasn't. You didn't leave going, "Oh my goodness!"
Okay.
Of course, the lines were also terrible.
Yeah.
So,
that's the problem. That's the problem. You should have dominated them,
correct.
right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So the only dual practice in training camp in recent memory that I can remember that I felt good about the Giants was when they had the 1-day practice with the Jets last year. That was a good practice.
Yeah,
the Giants got a lot out of that. In fact,
and it's tough to see it only one day too.
It is tough to see one day, but they did very well that day. It was a very productive practice. In fact, the Giants actually decided that they wanted to get their hands on Lawrence Cager after that practice because they liked what Cager had done so much, and they knew the Jets were so deep at tight end.
And Pinnock.
They got Pinnock too. Yes, I totally forgot about Pinnock. So. That one turned out to be very productive, and it was a good one, and the Giants wound up being a good team. So that was kind of nice. I don't know what we're going to see this week yet.
Hey, Giant fans, run or walk with Giants legends like Paul Dottino. I'm just kidding. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Sunday, October 8th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt after the race. Stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at giants.com/5K. Paul will actually be in either Detroit or Miami. Is that Miami or Detroit that weekend?
I don't remember. I think we're in Miami.
Yeah, so you will be in Miami walking on the beach somewhere instead of walking at the Giants 5K.
Hopefully one of the clothed beaches. Last time we were in Miami, the concierge directed me to a beach with some other NYG personnel.
And you just joined in?
Well, here was the problem. Oh, no. They told us to go down this way, that way, this way. You get to the fence.
I didn't ask for the story, just for the record.
But then they said turn right and just keep going.
You should have turned left?
Yes. Turning right was not a good idea because the people on the nude beach did not belong on the nude beach, if you get my drift.
When you show up to the Giants 5K, please show up with your clothes on.
Please.
How about that? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm telling you, there's a book here somewhere, folks, but I'm not going to write it.
201-939-4513. Let's go to Jason in New Haven, who will lead us off. Hello, Jason.
Hi, how you guys doing?
What's up?
Hi.
Good. Just a few things. I wanted to talk about Hyatt. Now, I know, he hasn't played the game yet, but apparently there's a lot of buzz. I haven't been to the training camp practices, but apparently there's a lot of buzz. I had a question for you guys.
Yes.
So, me personally, I don't pay too much attention to those pre-draft big boards because, and here's why I'm trying to equate the two. So, assuming what we're seeing from Hyatt in these practices, hopefully in the preseason as well, is a reflection of maybe some things he can do, in the season. I think, and I'm not talking about you guys, but just fans. Like I've heard some of my friends, fans, this draft board said this draft board said that. You'll always be able to find someone who graded a player higher, but the consensus with Hyatt coming out was that he was more of a project than maybe more of a starter. At least that's how I read it coming into the season.
Well, here's the thing with Hyatt, Jason, and I'll be very brief, and then you can finish up your point on Hyatt. You only saw him do a very limited number of things at Tennessee. So could Hyatt be a better route runner with a larger route tree? Maybe. There was no way for us to know because the only routes he ran at Tennessee were stops, goes, slants, and posts. That's it. He didn't run anything else. So there was no way to know how much better he could be if you gave him more. So you could say, well, we love his quickness and his speed most of all, and we think we can turn him into a more complete wide receiver. But I can promise you the reason he got to the third round is because teams are like, well, we've seen Jaden Reed in Michigan State run the full route tree. We've seen Charlie Jones at Purdue run the whole route tree. So we feel more comfortable drafting these guys because we have more information on what they can do on the field. For me, seeing Hyatt so far in camp, he's looked a lot better as a route runner than I expected. I did not. I had him as a middle of the second round type of player on my personal draft board. That's where I had him because I didn't know how much else he could do. And he's much. And if you listen to us during the draft process going in, some people had Hyatt up with those guys at the top of the draft. I was not one of them. But he has had a very impressive camp, and he's been a lot better, a lot sooner than I thought he could be, which has been great to see.
My biggest skeptical position on him, and others shared this too, at 175 pounds.
That too.
And as a guy, because of the limited route tree, was primarily considered a slot guy. I mean, I looked at those things as potential negatives, which to me was like, okay, third round, fine. Third round, I wouldn't take him any higher than that. But this just goes to show you how scouts, when they look at these prospects, they're looking at production, they're looking at the toolbox or the skill set, and then they're looking at the projection. And the projection is the one that's so hard to define.
Of course.
Because how is this guy going to translate when he gets to the NFL? How's he going to deal with the schemes, the speed, the physicality, the mental aspect of it, the maturing aspect of it? And, Hyatt has absolutely blown me away. What I've seen here now, John, and I think you would agree with me, with what we've seen to this point, and it's only a small sample size, again, against his own guys. So I don't want to go nuts here, but he looks like he should have been drafted at least one round earlier, just based on what we've seen right now.
Yes.
Because some of that projection stuff has been answered as, okay, he's got that.
I agree.
Yeah, you guys are right. And I was only saying that because when I saw that Alabama game, you guys tell me what receiver you've seen in the last few years that, he literally tore Alabama's defense apart. It was that to me sold me on him last year, where I thought he was a first-round pick, me personally.
And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that.
And my thing is, the fact that a guy hasn't done something in college does not mean he can't do it. It just means that they didn't ask him to do it.
Yes, 100%.
And again, projection-wise, you don't know if he can project into doing it. That's a gamble. It's always going to be. There's always a gamble here when you're talking about that projection.
It's the same conversation we had with Michael Parsons 2 years ago. We thought he could be a pass rusher, but he never did it as an edge guy, so you couldn't say for sure whether or not he could do it because he wasn't asked to do it in college. And I'll tell you what, if people knew he could do that in college, he would have been the first overall pick at the damn draft.
I was crying for it, but whatever.
You weren't crying.
I was wrong about Isaiah. I wasn't crying to make him the first pick, but I said he should be an edge rusher.
No, you said that.
I was wrong about Isaiah Williams though. Isaiah Simmons. Thank you, John. Isaiah Simmons did not turn out to be what I thought he was going to be. I thought he would also be a really good edge rusher, and that hasn't worked out as well.
You were right on Parsons as a pass rusher. Yep.
1-1.
Oh, one more point about Hyatt, then I'm going to give you the play I'm interested to see. Detroit. Just watching film, I played football in college, just watching, I love college football, I love the Giants, I love NFL, I just love football, period. So just watching some of the plays and some of the releases that the Giants were using last year, some of the switch releases that they were using with Richie James and Hodgins, some of those concepts I think Tennessee ran. So when you guys did that, the behind-the-scenes draft, when Dable was like trying to trade, I think he traded with the Rams to get Hyatt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I think that's what he was thinking, because some of those switch releases that Tennessee runs, the Giants were running last year with it would be Hodgins and Richie James on one side, and they would run switch releases, and Richie James had some good plays for us last year, and I think that's what he was envisioning last year. So I'm really excited to see what Hyatt's going to be. Now, am I saying he's going to be the number one? No, but I really think they're going to try to incorporate him this year, just based off the way Tennessee used their receivers and the way in some of our plays we use Richie James and Hodgins.
I'm going to give you one thing.
Well, I will say this, and just real quick, Jason, I don't see him in the Richie James role at all.
Not at all.
I see him in the Darius Slayton role last year.
I think the best thing that I could tell you in response to what you just said doesn't come from me. It comes from Brian Boldinger, who was out of practice yesterday. I spent a lot of time with him. And the one thing he said to me was, as we were watching Hyatt, he goes, these are routes he never ran at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. The stuff he's doing at Giants practice, they're not mimicking Tennessee routes to help him. They're not doing that, John. He is running all the stuff they want to run, and he's showing he can do it.
Yeah, I think he's more speaking because they would stack Hyatt a little bit so they can get the press off him at Tennessee.
They're not really doing that here.
Mm-hmm. And then one play I'm interested to see with Detroit, and thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in Beavers. Now, I know I've called in the weeks prior saying that I'm not a big fan of our edge depth, and I know people have said, "Oh, well, we blitz a lot, so we have to worry about the edge." I just think I just think our edge depth needs some work. How it's going to happen, I don't know. I'm sure the front office will worry about that. But I remember watching Beavers in Cincinnati, and they used them a lot off the edge.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying they're going to put them at the edge. I'm not saying that, but I wouldn't be mad to see them blitz him a lot and kind of use his athleticism. I mean, I think he's like 6'4", 250. So he's a
big dude. I mean, honestly, if you put Beavers next to, he might have a bigger frame than Ojulari, even, to be honest with you.
He was big.
Yeah, he might be a little bit.
He was big in Cincinnati, so I'm interested to see him. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of our edge depth. I would be the first to say it. I like KT. I like Ojulari. After that, to me, it's So hopefully we see Beavers, blitz a little bit. I'm sure Wink will use him in that role sometimes during the season. But I want to see what your assessment is on Beavers during this training camp and how he's looked, and do you see him being moved around kind of the chessboard, maybe rushing off the edge a little bit, maybe blitzing? And I'll take your call off the air, fellas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Great call. Excellent call. I don't see him being used as an edge player.
No,
we haven't seen him there one-on-one at all.
Nor do I.
But do I see him being used as a blitzer? Sure, absolutely.
I think you will see much more versatility in the blitz package and even moving around to potentially sometimes edge stuff out of Bobby Okereke than you will Beavers. Beavers is going to be inside. I don't think you're going to see him outside at all. Now, Okereke has tremendous versatility and has a lot of quickness, and he finds seams, and he's shot out of a cannon on the blitz.
Cover.
And he can play all three downs because he can cover. Okereke's more likely to be the blitzer of those two backers if they're going to be the starting two inside. Now, having said that, don't forget, Coach Martindale has been very high on Micah McFadden, who did a lot of the blitzing stuff when he was at Indiana, because he does have that straight-ahead quickness. And we've seen Beavers and McFadden basically alternate.
Yeah, we've seen some other spots where they started alternating, that one guy has kind of stepped up and taken stranglehold of that position, or at least gotten the majority of the snaps
Not
there.
that one, though.
Yeah, correct. That's where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Like John Michael Schmitz has slowly, I think, gotten the majority of the center reps, though last practice on Saturday, it was Bredesen at center with the one. So it goes back and forth a little bit. Pinnock, I feel like, has kind of probably gotten the majority of the safety snaps as we've gone along. The receiver snaps are still all over the place, folks. I mean, we have seen – I'll list them. We've seen – I don't want to miss anybody. We've seen Isaiah Hodgins. We've seen Jalen Hyatt. We've seen Sterling Shepard. We've seen Cole Beasley. We've seen Paris Campbell. We've seen Darius Slayton. All at one point in time recently, almost every practice, quite frankly, get some snaps with the ones.
everywhere.
So that's 6 guys, 6 different wide receivers we've seen get snaps with the one. So that's still all over the place. We've seen, I'm trying to think what are the spots we talked about heading
You mentioned
into the
Beasley,
year.
right?
Yeah, cornerback. Trey Hawkins seems to have kind of, I'm not saying he's grabbed it, but
He's
the
helped
last few
himself.
practices, he's been the starting outside corner with the ones.
He's helped himself. Again, we need to see against other competition, but he's definitely helped himself. Dable's very interesting what he said. Putting a couple of things together on different days. Dable says the depth chart doesn't matter because he's moving everybody around and everybody's going to get a chance. He says that, and he means that. But then he also says guys will earn more snaps if they deserve them. So Hawkins fits into that category, John.
Yep.
Where he has deserved some more snaps, so he has gotten some more. But there have been other times where they've lined up their starters, let's say in a defensive-only package where they're trying to do the blitzes and they're trying to do the assignment and alignment drills, if you will. And Hawkins is not with the first team. But then they'll do 11 on 11, and all of a sudden he gets a couple of first-team reps. So he's not, quote, elevated to first team, so to speak, but he's gotten a taste of it.
Well, here's the thing. I think when they do the alignment stuff, there's only 2 corners out there.
Correct.
Which is
Well,
Adoree
actually-
and Banks. So then when they go to nickel, they'll slide Adoree inside and then put Trey outside.
They've also used Flott, and they've also used Holmes.
No, they have to. That's 100%
with
accurate, yes.
Jackson outside,
They
and
have.
the Hawkins has just watched.
And we've other seen times where Jackson's just taking the snap, taking a series off because he's a veteran.
Correct.
And then Hawkins would be outside with either Holmes or Flott
Correct.
inside. So Hawkins, I think, is
He's helped himself.
increasing his volume with the ones there in the mix, but it's not, I wouldn't say anything at this point is done. I wonder when they're going to go from giving guys an opportunity mode to, all right, these are the guys we want to use mode, and try to give more. But again, they've been fine rotating guys last year too, even throughout the regular season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
John, I don't know that we're really going to have any answers, even all the way up until the week against the Cowboys. I really
right.
don't.
The 2023 NFL schedule is out. Check out the single game tickets on sale right now at Giants.com/tickets. Go there to secure your seat. Don't miss a Giants game in MetLife Stadium. Go get your single game tickets. And don't forget, while you're there, Giants.com/tickets, go become a season ticket member. You can take your fam to the next level, stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for 2023. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, again, one more time, it's Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory for season ticket memberships and single game tickets is limited. Finally, the Giants' official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Let's go back to the phones and say what's up to Rich in Virginia. He's up next. Hey, Rich.
Good afternoon, John and Godfather. How are you today?
Hi.
Hello, sir.
So, since I think we're down to 14 wide receivers now that Smith is gone. What are your thoughts about Joe Shane trading one of those kids, like for instance Colin, who is on the bubble, trading him for? And I agree with Jason, your previous caller, for an edge guy. I'm very concerned about the depth on the edge. What are your thoughts on that? You think Joe Shane would do that?
I don't know you're going to get what you want for him now. Just for Colin, as in Colin Johnson, for the fans that don't know, he's a 6'6" wide receiver who had a really good camp last year, tore his Achilles, came back. He's having another pretty good camp this year as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you're going to get for a guy like Johnson until he blows up in a preseason game. After he blows up in a preseason game and puts some tape down that other teams see and they might find valuable, then that's a player that I think maybe you can move for, to your point, a backup at edge or another player where you think you might want to get some improvement at, maybe inside linebacker, wherever you're looking for some extra bodies. So I don't think you're going to be able to make a move like that until one of these wide receivers that maybe is excess for you blows up in a preseason game. Remember, these other teams are not seeing practice tape, so it's not like they see a guy as a monster in practice. Colin Johnson never had a chance to do that last year either in a game because of the injury. So I think we're going to have to wait for these at least a couple preseason games before something like that, Paul, might be on the table.
I concur with John's premise. I would add this, though. If you're going to deal a extra wide receiver per se, you're probably getting like a 7th conditional. I don't see you getting another player for them. I just don't.
I mean, if another team really needs a wideout, the problem is that wideout is not a position of scarcity in the NFL.
No. So I don't see you getting another body.
You might be
I
right
think
about
at best you're going to get a 7th-round conditional draft choice for someone who's on the fringe. And honestly, if you think about this, the Giants, they signed, 11 free agents during the offseason, and then they spent a bunch of money on their own guys. So they're not going to have compensatory picks next year, I don't believe. I don't know if you've gone through the estimated formula, John, but I don't think they're likely to get any.
I mean, they didn't lose anyone of great significance, right?
Right, and they
Well,
signed
they
11.
lost,
Yeah.
Julian Love.
Yeah, they lost
Julian Love was a
that's
good
true.
player, but he was not a high-priced player. So I'm not sure they're going to get any compensatories. So I think if you're Joe Shane, knowing how much he loves draft picks, and not just for picking purposes, but also for trading collateral, I think if he's got a few extra guys at cutdown day, he'd probably rather get some picks, even if they're 6th or 7th rounders, than he would adding bodies. And I don't think you're going to add a pass rusher of any ilk for a fringe wide receiver. That trade's just not realistic. And I would add one other thing, too. Remember this, 2 things. Number one, if you're going to cut a player, you're the Giants, you're cutting a player. They go by last year's end-of-season standings on the waiver wire for these young guys. So if you're a really crappy team, you're going to get first dibs. You're going to be up high on the waiver wire.
Like the Giants last year.
Right. on to get dibs on any good guys who are cut. So you're going to have a realistic chance of picking up some pretty good guys that good teams are going to want to release. So you're not going to really want to pay too much in terms of a possible trade. Now, the other thing that you want to consider, too.
Yeah, no compensatories, it looks like, Paul.
Doesn't look like any? I didn't think so.
Based off over the cap, it doesn't look like there's any compensatories that are going to come.
Yeah,
there.
so I wouldn't be surprised if Joe's primary purpose to
my
trade
gosh.
fringe guys is to grab some compensatories.
Oh, my gosh.
What do you got?
I'm just looking at the Eagles list.
I don't want to talk about them. Why ruin my day? Oh, my God.
John,
But here's the one other thing, Rich, I want you to keep in mind. Because there's
What's
only
that?
one cut down, all right?
Right.
They're going
I know
from
that.
90 to 53
I know.
on August 29th. Because there's only one cut down, guys are less likely to change teams, okay? Because if you cut a player earlier, he's got a chance to go to another team, go to a camp, practice for a week or two, maybe even play a preseason game, and he's got a chance to make that team because they can evaluate him. This year, there's only one cut after the final preseason game, which really doesn't give the unknown player an opportunity to go to another team and familiarize the coaching staff with him and to prove himself to make it. The best chance that he's got to stay in the league is to stay at home on the practice squad. So I think the new cutdown rule, in my opinion, will enhance your ability to keep guys on the practice squad outside of the outlier who maybe has a great preseason and somebody is absolutely going to try to steal him from you.
Teams will generally want to keep their own guys since they're already familiar with your system.
And that's just the way that, to me, the one cut is really going to enhance that value.
What else you got, Rich?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. And the last thing, and I know Paul and I have discussed this for years, but I'd like to see this done before we die, is will the Giants ever be able to run a successful screen pass?
I hope so.
That's been a problem for years.
No, I know. I have not seen many
And it's
successful
just
screen passes.
so frustrating.
Rich,
And,
I've got some good news for you.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate
I've
the
seen
call.
some back shoulder throws in training camp,
They
John.
actually had one practice where it looked like they were specifically working on that.
I'm so excited. I love it.
I don't know how successful they were with those in practice, but
They ran them.
Yeah, they did run them.
They ran them.
You're right. I
I'm
was
so excited.
I thought about you when I saw that.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll make you depressed now. So in the division, it doesn't look like Washington's going to get any compensatory picks either. The Giants are getting 0, and they still have Ashawn Robinson unaccounted for. So they can even lose another guy, but they're not. Obviously, all the guys are done. So
Yeah,
the
they're not-
Giants
they're
aren't
not
going to get
getting
anything. Dallas, again, over the cap projects these things. It can change.
Right.
They have Dallas with a 5, 6, and 7. Connor McGovern, Dalton Schultz, and Noah Brown.
So 3?
Yeah, a 5, a 6, and a 7.
Oh.
Do you want to hear the Eagles?
Oh, you kidding me?
You dude.
How bad?
They have 0 free agents gained.
Yeah.
These are the ones they lost. You ready?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hargrave, a 3rd rounder. Siamalu, a 5th rounder. Dillard, a 5th rounder. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a 6th rounder. TJ Edwards, a 6th rounder. Miles Sanders, a 6th rounder. Marcus Epps, a 6th rounder. Kaiser White, a 6th rounder. Gardner Minshew, a 7th rounder. Zach Pascal, a 7th rounder. So they might not get all of these because you might run out of picks. But
Wow.
they have 10.
That's awful.
5 in the 6.
That's just awful.
1 3, 2 5s, 5 6s.
That's just awful.
Well, when you build up your roster and people want your players, this is what happens.
You know, I used to love jumbo pretzels, but after hearing that, I might just gag on one the next time.
Hey, look, and next year, remember, the Giants have, 2 veterans, Adoree Jackson and Leonard Williams. So depending if the Giants bring those guys
We'll
back,
see.
you could get, big compensatory numbers for them
Wow.
depending on where they sign. Or hopefully they'll be back too. So we'll see.
And did we mention Miles Jack and Zach Cunningham, 2 linebackers, just signed with the Eagles yesterday?
Nicole Dean apparently dealing with an ankle, so I think they're trying to get some
and
reinforcements
I
there.
think we had Spadaro on, right?
Yeah.
When he said that he did agree that the linebacking core was the thinnest part of the Eagles roster.
Yep.
So they bring in 2 guys now who have multiple 100-tackle seasons.
And by the way, are not old players. They're both under 30 years old. I love the Eagles. Like, they have a need. They don't just bring in one guy. Like, last year, it's like, we'll have Linval Joseph. Here comes the Dominican Sue.
Right.
We need a linebacker.
Right.
Just Miles Jack. Nah, we'll go Zach Cunningham also. Come on. They don't mess around, man.
Oh, boy.
201-939-4513. Just a reminder again, guys, we're cutting the show early today at 2:20 because we have to get on a bus to get to Detroit. So we have 2 callers to go. Let's go to David in Michigan. He's up first, then we'll get to you, Len. David, what's up?
Paisan, how you doing?
Hello. How are you, Dave?
I live about 5 miles from Ford Field, and I told Paul on Twitter, you guys got to go to Giovanni's restaurant while you're in town.
The problem
It
is
is
that we're
where-
staying a pretty long distance outside of downtown is the problem.
From what I'm told.
Are you really?
Yeah.
From what I'm told, Dave.
Yeah,
it's
because they're practicing at the Lions practice facility, not at Ford Field,
Right.
so we're closer to the practice facility.
Oh, okay. Well, it's still a pretty short drive. I mean,
Okay.
and it's worth it. It's where rock stars like.
I
go to
did keep
eat.
your note, Dave. I did keep your note, so there's
All
always
right.
a possibility. Thank you, though, for the advice.
All right.
I will try to drag Paul out for
okay.
you.
On Sterling Shepard. Look, I love Sterling as much as anybody does. But other than for depth, like, I hope it's an automatic that he starts on PUP because
No, he
I
can't.
don't want to.
Not now. He's activated.
He's already
It's too late.
activated. He can't start on PUP.
Too late.
See, I think that's a mistake because the guys in the wide receiver room right now, I want to keep 6 or 7 of them all intact. And if they'd have started Shep on PUP, then they could have kept him in reserve for depth.
Now, David, there's a chance
Nobody-
they start Wando Robinson on PUP if that helps you.
Mm-hmm. And I think
Well,
that's
I
realistic.
All right, I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to irritate you.
Okay. I like that.
Last year in August, I was on Twitter and I predicted the following. And I hate to say this because I don't wish injury on anybody. But the first thing I predicted was that Kadarius Toney would have no impact on the season. That was one prediction.
Sadly, you were correct.
The second prediction I made, unfortunately, was that Shepard would be down and out by Game 5. And I love this guy as much as you do. He's great on and off the field, great character, great in the room, but he's brittle. And I hate losing one of these guys that I'm excited to have for a guy who can't stay on the field. So that's one thing. And I got 2 predictions. One is that by the end of the season, Daniel Jones is rated in the top 9 quarterbacks in the NFL.
That would be very high, but that would be great.
Points per game, average points per game, 27.
27.
Pearson, throw me the sticky notes over there and a pen. I gotta write
Dave,
down
I've got him going up 3 points a game to 24. Now 27 is a bit bold, huh?
I'm going 27. That's how much faith I have in the offense this year. And, Paul, I stumped you the other week on a Giants
Yep.
trivia question.
Yep.
I got another one.
Okay.
Since 1970, okay, so I'm in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
What college has provided the Giants the most number one draft picks?
First round draft picks?
First round pick.
Okay, interesting. It's a good question.
Georgia?
Nope.
Let me think. Let me give a little bit. I'm going to say Alabama.
Nope.
Notre Dame?
Nope.
Michigan?
Nope.
I'm going to name every college. Okay, we give up. What school?
Miami.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought
I
that.
went through and counted them up. So
How many
Hey,
were
listen,
there, Dave?
Sorry?
How many were there? You said this is since 1970, so we're talking about
4.
52 years.
Only
53,
4, huh?
53 years.
And only
That's 4.
and 4 is the
4.
most, huh?
In
That's
53
interesting.
years.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll excuse
4.
us for not knowing that.
Thank you, Dave. We got to run, man.
Okay.
Appreciate the call. I want to make sure we get in Len in Columbia, Maryland
Yeah.
before we say goodbye.
Len was a visitor last week.
I know. We got to say hello to Len. Len, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hi,
Yeah,
Len.
it was great to see. Hey, hi guys. Hey, it was great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yep.
I appreciate it. If I lived closer, I'd be there every day.
I know you would.
It's a great show. Yeah, no, it really is a great show. It's a great show. The Giants do a great job with it. They really do. Hey, John, you made it sound like you and Paul were going to Detroit by bus. They are going to let you on the plane. Right?
No, the bus takes us to the plane. The bus does not take us all the way to Detroit. I should have been clear about that. Thank you.
Okay.
That would be a long walk even for me, Len.
All right. Listen, if I was traveling with you guys, if I was going to see these practices with the Lions, and of course I'll see the game on Friday night, I'm going to be watching, and this has come up before, I'm going to be watching Beavers, and I'm going to be watching, I want to see what Banks is doing, and I want to see, interior offensive line, particularly the new center.
Sure, why not?
Want to see how he plays. And boy, I got my eye on that slot receiver position, and whether or not something breaks loose of this logjam, I'm not feeling good about Shep. I'm hoping for it, because he's a favorite. But boy, I don't know. We got some guys there who can play, and hopefully Shep can keep up. How do you guys see that breaking down? I mean,
Too early, I think.
you look at it.
It's a good question.
Len, I'll give you
think
one
it's
thing
too
while you're still with us. Let me give you something quick. Brian Dable gave us something today. He says he's really interested in watching Eric Gray in the return game on special teams. And we've seen him in practice taking some punts and now some kickoffs.
And he said you can only judge a guy in games when it comes
Correct.
to returns. So that'll be big.
That'll be very interesting to see. Eric Gray now has potentially a kick return guy. Remember, Brightwell was the only running back who was playing special teams.
I will say this,
And
Len.
now
the
Gray's
one-
gonna be doing
Yeah,
it.
the one thing, Len, I think I know about the slot position that I don't think has really changed much. Paris Campbell, I think, is going to start in the slot for you in week 1.
He
Okay.
might, yeah, he might. He take
Wow,
most of his reps there,
wow.
but he does do outside too. But he's a lot in the slot.
Yeah. And I think I got the conversation with the previous caller right. To be on the physically unable to perform list, you have to be physically unable to perform.
That's correct.
If you get caught,
This is true. This is true.
You make a good point.
That's why they call it the PUP.
if you get caught trying to hide somebody, you're going to be in a heap of trouble.
Yeah, you'll get fined or
And
worse.
the league, and the league monitors that sort of thing. They
No
don't,
doubt.
They don't let you just put anybody on the physically unable to perform list.
No, you're right.
You really have to be able.
Remember the regulation,
listen,
though, Len, aside from having to do it correctly, you also can't put a guy on it once you've taken him off it during training camp.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
That's a one-way street.
Right. And to be on the regular season list, you have to have been on the preseason list.
Correct.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's Wandale and Donaldson. One other position, I just from a depth standpoint, I really want to see who they rotate through the backup to Dexter deal. Who are the guys? They've been signing a lot of one technique, huge men.
Yeah, they have been. Bryant is one. They just brought another one.
Atkins is here.
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
Len.
a
There's
guy
a
named
lot. The
Cedar.
question is that outside of Leonard, Dexter, Nacho, and Ashawn, what, do you keep one more? You can't
Maybe.
keep more than 5, can
no,
you?
you cannot keep
Oh,
more
I
than
think they're
5.
I think they're going to carry 5 this year.
Okay.
That's the
Yeah.
most.
I think they're going to carry
the
5.
most.
I mean, given how many people are in that room, Len, you kind of feel like they
Wow.
have to, right?
I know. And they worked out another guy. I understand they worked out another guy yesterday who was a veteran, who'd been around for a while.
Just remember, Len, there's a lot of people who want to keep like 10 receivers.
Thank you, Len. Appreciate the call, man.
You know, John, the biggest thing for me isn't even so much who the best guys are at each position.
Yeah.
It's how are you going to rob from one position to fortify the other.
All right, really quick before we say goodbye,
Yeah.
I'm going to list some players. Will they? You have to answer yes or no. Will they play on Friday?
Okay,
You ready?
real quick. Yeah.
John Michael Schmitz.
Yes.
I say no. Deontay Banks.
Yes.
I say no. Trey Hawkins.
Yes.
I say yes. Sterling Shepard.
No.
I agree. Cole Beasley.
No.
Ooh, okay, I think yes for him. I think those are the only guys that I found interesting in terms
Okay.
of positioning. How about Beavers and McFadden?
Both.
I think they both play too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Very welcome.
We're going to go gather some snacks, use the bathroom, get on the bus, and Lance will be with you the next couple of days with Cross and Casillas, and then I will be back with Paul for an audio show. It'll be live, but it'll be audio on Thursday afternoon because that's an off day. So we have our unit. If everything goes well, we'll be doing it from the hotel room in Detroit. It should go fine. We've done this before. It should be okay.
We have.
And Pearson will be here minding the shop, and we'll take your calls on Thursday. And then on Friday, assuming the schedule with the buses work out, we'll have to make sure it does. Paul should be on with Lance on Friday. It'll be video. Paul's big shiny face will be on there. Pearson will make a nice graphic of happy Paul next to Lance. We're going to kind of Photoshop it in the chair next to Lance. It'll be Lance, then a giant Dottino face. It'll be great. So make sure you check that out. I'm not sure if that's what we're doing or not, but now I want them to do it because I think it'll be hilarious.
I know. Pearson will just put a dartboard up.
For Paul Dottino, or maybe just a big bowl of pasta. How about that?
That'll work.
A picture of a big bowl of pasta or chicken parm. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. That's Big Blue Kickoff Live. We will talk to you personally on Thursday, but Lance will be back tomorrow for another episode as Paul and I head off to Detroit, and I'll try to call in after practice during the show to give you an update of what happened. So we'll talk to you then.